Hey Shay.
So, very much looking forward to our conversation today. I put out a call into the wild, wild west of the internet, specifically looking for people who are in a men's leadership space or community leadership in general and have certain passions and areas of focus and interest in that lane. And so you reached out to have this conversation with me because that checked some of the boxes of what you're doing and how you're showing up in this world. And so I appreciate you being aligned with a mission and vision, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I'm really stoked to be here, and these are some of my favorite topics to dive into. And I just feel like the world could use more conversations, meaningful conversations like these. So thanks for answering the call of inspiration that you had to even start this. I really just resonated when you put the call out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was living in Phoenix for the past 3 years prior to this one, and our paths weaved a few times, but I feel like I didn't really get to experience you in any of those roles or spaces. What are you doing in the Arizona community?
I'm one of the main leaders of a men's movement and community called Mantras. I also am a leader in the local Tantra community. And specifically, I've just recently stepped into the role of organizer for ISTA, which is the International School of Temple Arts. It's an international neo-tantra organization that really fuses together the threads of spirituality, sexuality, and shamanism.
Mm.
So I've been working with them for a few years now, and now stepping into a leadership role in organizing their trainings in Arizona. I also host other smaller events for the local Tantra community, such as cuddle parties and other kinds of relationship building experiences that really is helping to build richer community in Phoenix.
It's
Mhm.
pretty impressive. I've definitely heard of people going to ISTA trainings in other countries. Of the women I know who have gone to those trainings, I haven't talked to any men who have done it. They come back saying they're completely changed as people and energetically. And I know there's a lot of mystery that happens there. And I feel like they come back with this secretive, I can't tell you what it was. You have to go if you want to find out type of vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, the analogy I would use for that is it's like if you go and see a great movie and you're like, oh my God, like I feel like my friend would love this. You don't want to try to describe what the movie is, right? It's like you experience it for yourself. Go watch it because you're going to get what you get out of it. And maybe that movie is not for everyone and I wouldn't recommend it for everyone, but there's maybe some people who I'm like, yo, this was dope and I loved it. I know we're similar in these ways. So like maybe go check it out if it feels inspired for you too.
What type of human would you recommend going and doing this type of work?
Yeah, so
You don't have to be PG either. It's okay.
okay, sweet. Good
Yeah.
to know. Totally. And there's definitely things I can share. I don't want it to seem
Yeah.
like, oh my God, it's a secretive thing. Like, really, the main purpose of not sharing some of the specifics of what happens at the trainings is, like I said, so you can experience it for yourself because it's a very intentionally designed journey. I would kind of describe it as almost like a sober medicine journey in a way. That is, if you've ever done any kind of plant medicines before, it's going to be different for every person and every time. But, there's some common threads. So the two main components of an ISTA training is one, the educational component. So there's a lot of like frameworks and teachings shared on how do we build healthy human relationships in our lives and a lot of like practical tools that all should have been taught in like early elementary school that most of us never were on just how to create, like, what are the foundations of a healthy relationship with someone, whether that's a friendship or an intimate relationship or a work relationship, whatever it might be. There's certain foundational principles that we can learn that give us a much higher likelihood of consistently creating positive connections with others. So I'd say that's like a really big component of what the training offers. There's specific practices around setting boundaries and communicating needs and wants and desires, and just, again, basic skills that a lot of people are not great at. Pair that also with a lot of us who have a hard time really owning our voice and sharing our truth. I know women have their own set of experiences that are common on why women struggle with that. Men kind of have their own different set of struggles in these ways too. And each of us have our own unique paths. So that's kind of half of it, is the educational part and the relationship, healthy relationship building part. The other half is experiential, or, there's certain rituals or processes that we move through in order to go deeper into the roots of why we are the way we are, and like shifting those patterns. So that's probably where your friends were coming from. And some of the most impactful parts of the experience is more than just like talk therapy, which I love talk therapy. I've done it for like 4 years now, and I've had some amazing results and experiences from that. And with any modality, there's certain limitations. And so to kind of circle back directly to your question, what kind of person might go to an ISTA training? I would say it's someone who usually has done a decent amount of other kinds of work on themselves, whether in spirituality or sexuality or, manifestation, shamanism, magic, or just personal development in general, who is looking for some deeper edges of where deeper healing and transformation might exist that they haven't quite tapped into yet. And so something unique about the ISTA training is we intentionally work with the sexual energy and with eros, which oftentimes is where a lot of our deepest wounding has happened, and our traumas are kind of still locked in our bodies. And we're able to work with the body and with that energy in order to unlock that, in order to move the stuck energy that certain other modalities just don't quite tap into, because those kind of are usually off limits areas in a lot of other spiritual and healing work. So I would say it's someone who, like, you've done a lot of work on yourself, but you feel like there's something beneath all of that that you can't quite reach. In a lot of cases, this kind of work can tap into some of those deeper layers that previously were inaccessible, and give you a safe and powerful space in order to explore that and to find that like deeper healing that you're looking for.
Yeah, that definitely seems like it would be really edgy for a lot of people, in particular the people who are called to it. Maybe they have a lot of experience already tapping into those worlds, but I feel like a lot of people don't, especially not at a deeper layer, and especially not being in a group setting where you're also being witnessed and accessing this level of depth.
Yeah,
It would feel very exposing to me. I've been curious about doing this training someday, and I feel like it would be really confronting to me. Yeah, that doesn't mean I wouldn't do it, but that means it would be really challenging to me. Yeah.
totally. Yeah, that word confronting is actually, I think, really great. That's how I felt when I first started this work about 7 or 8 years ago in a different sacred sexuality community. It was extremely confronting. It brought up all of my early childhood conditioning, my religious programming, like, oh, this is wrong, this is a sin. Like, there's just a lot of things I was taught, like to just even be in a room with someone else who might be naked, for example. It was such an edgy thing when I first started this work, where we're not like getting intimate or intimate partners or anything, but we're just like in the room with other humans who just don't have any clothes on. And like, what do we do with that? And like, how does that make me feel? And like, what does it mean? It's just, yeah, it can be very confronting and vulnerable to enter into a space like that. Cause it's like, literally, there's nothing to hide anymore, literally. And that brings up a lot for each person in their own way. And it can be a bit scary and intimidating. And, it requires a certain level of creating a container and holding a space in a very specific kind of way, in a very strong way, so that when people do have their stuff come up, it can be held well, and it can be used as a positive opportunity to heal and transform and go deeper versus it being traumatizing or re-traumatizing for someone. And that's like a very kind of hot topic lately, is like, how do we address when harm or potential harm has happened in a space that is meant for safety and healing, when there's also just inherent risk in going into this kind of work? And how do we handle that and minimize the risk and maximize the positive experiences people are having, where we're literally intentionally bringing up maybe some of the deepest trauma someone might have experienced, but it kind of is a necessary thing to happen if we really want to heal from it. It has to, on some level, be reactivated, to be excavated, in order for it to come to the surface and for us to do something with that, to make a different choice and shift a pattern and have a different experience.
That feels like a huge responsibility, to be a leader in that type of community and to be someone who is there to assist and aid in helping people navigate these potential big feelings, or if the traumas do come up, I feel like inevitably they will. I feel like it's impossible that they wouldn't.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm curious if you're able to share some of the ways you would navigate that experience. Someone's, maybe they want to leave the training or whatever might come up for them. What are you offering?
Yeah, it's a great question and a big question, because there's a lot of components. So I'll do my best to like simplify. One of the biggest things is how the container is set up front and what agreements that we are creating together as like a field. Sometimes we'll refer to the group as like the field. It's like we're all within this field. And so that's kind of the energetic foundation of the container, and what creates a lot of the strength and safety in it is our shared set of agreements in how we're going to show up in the container, what is within the container, what's outside of the container. So that's like step one. Step two is, what are the tools that we are offering our participants in order that they can actually move and process through what's coming up for them themselves. So there's different, for example, emotional release tools and techniques that we teach, so that the more we can equip someone to be able to navigate whatever their experience is, the better they can handle the different things that come up. You know, alongside of that, there's also direct support provided. There's usually at least three different facilitators, sometimes four at these trainings. One of them being a lead facilitator who typically has decades worth of training and experience in the field and has held containers like this for a long time and has done a variety of different trainings and, you know, certifications, and even more so lately, like more trauma-informed type of trainings that allow them to see and understand what's happening in people's processes, where it becomes almost like second nature, where they can just see, sense, and feel, oh, this thing is coming up for this person. And they know how to support someone through that process because they've done it many, many times at this point. So, you know, those are some of the main ways that we hold containers, as well as just the core team's commitment to integrity and really showing up in service to those who are choosing to attend. It's not about what am I personally getting out of it if I'm assisting or organizing or being a part of the team in some way. It's like we are here to serve each person's individual experience. And it's all about serving and supporting them on their unique healing journey and what transformation they came here for. And so we continue to clarify and reiterate that, and be very pure and clear on what our intention is and what our focus is when we're showing up to serve the people in the field.
How does this group involvement and what you've learned here translate into what you're doing now with men's work?
So recently in our men's community, we've actually had a lot more interest in this kind of work, where it's like, as men, one of our core challenges is like getting out of our heads and into our hearts, and really tapping more into like a healthy emotional body. And so we've done a lot of like mental and even like heart work over the last couple of years within our men's community. And kind of the next frontier, the next edge that is coming up for a lot of the men is this piece on intimacy and sexuality and relationships, and like how do I build healthy relationships? How do I even approach like dating in a way that isn't this like inauthentic like pickup artistry or just like other types of teachings that are out there that don't feel fully resonant or authentic? Like, how do we approach it from a place of integrity while also not just being like fucking celibate or something and being like, oh, I'm just on a spiritual path and I'm just, going to meditate. And it's like, no, like we're all human beings and we have desires and we want connection, and our body, like we have biological needs and wants. And like, how do we deal with that? How do we handle that? And how do we deal with our own body self-image? Like, what do we feel and experience when we look at ourselves naked in the mirror? What does it mean to maybe look at another man who is naked in the same room as me? There's like this underlying homophobia that's part of our programming. What do we do about that? So there's a lot of really juicy and interesting topics that come up around this that the men in our community, that now that we've built a certain foundation of trust with each other and done a certain amount of other kinds of work, this seems to be like one of the next missing pieces for us of like the edge of our growth and development, both as individuals, but also as a collective of like, how do we as men even address this collective generational trauma that men have inflicted upon women specifically in regards to our, history of dominating and violating and all of these things that men historically have done and are more known for. How do we show up in a powerful way, but not cause harm in these same ways, and find like a different way of relating and a different way of showing up and modeling an example of something else, something healthier?
I think that's really beautiful. And I'm curious what types of resistance do you feel or hear from the men as y'all are engaging in these topics of conversation? I imagine everyone isn't just in full agreement, or are they?
I would say we're like easing our way into it because there are some men who I think are at varying stages of readiness for it. I'd say some of the men who are a little more advanced have been involved a bit longer, been doing the deep inner work for a longer period of time, feel like they're ready for it. Whereas other men are a little bit newer to just self-development in general. And so the topic of talking about their body or their sexuality is in and of itself edgy, just to even have a conversation about it. So I think there's definitely some resistance that comes up there, where there's a lot of shame that's still very much internalized. So I think that's probably one of the biggest blocks that I notice is this internal shame that we have about our bodies, that we have about our sexuality, that we have about just the way that we show up in the world and can penetrate the world as men and as, embodied masculine beings. And I think associated with that, another topic that's super juicy for me lately is like relationship with power. And how do I wield power in a cleaner way that is used for more benevolent, empowering, uplifting purposes and minimizes negative side effects of power that's wielded unruly or unintentionally, even if it's not intentional abuse of power, even when we're just not aware of the full impact of our power and influence, we can easily cause harm and create negative experiences for other people if we're just, unattuned and unrefined with how we're using our power. And I think that topic really comes up in the sacred sexuality space as well, because our sexual energy is literally the energy of creation and equally can be the energy of destruction. So that's like the level of power that we're dealing with when we go into these spaces. And it really brings up a deep inquiry and relationship with my power.
When do you feel most powerful? What does power feel like when it's surging through you?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I personally typically feel the most powerful in two scenarios. One of them is when I'm leading or facilitating a group. I really feel in my power and in my influence and in my like effects and impact on others, where there's this attention focused on me and I'm in service to others in some way. That's like when I feel like I'm the instrument, the vessel for God, for energy, for life to flow through me. And it's a very like alive experience for me, which can be very exciting and also a bit intimidating in moments where it's like, even if I feel a little shaky, it's because there's so much like power running through me. So that's one scenario where I feel most in my power. And then the other one is when I am expressing and performing and rapping and just like allowing that creative expression to come through, which is kind of similar but different than what I just described, where it's like I'm becoming this channel for messages to come through, for energies and frequencies to come through. And it's like this very interesting fusion of I'm still me and I like sense me and my personality, but it's also like very transpersonal at the same time, where I'm also this like impersonal, like instrument vessel that God is flowing through. And when God flows through me, because of the instrument I am, it makes a unique sound and it can play certain songs. I'm just the instrument. And I'm like the hollow bone is what we call it in shamanism, where it's just, source is flowing through me, but I'm not the one creating it. I'm not the originator of it. I'm the vessel that it is happening through.
Heck yeah. When you're channel, when you're in that flow and you can tell that what you're doing, what you're communicating, what you're speaking, what you're saying is landing with the other people and maybe it's making an impact. Myself feel power in similar ways in arenas you're describing, more particularly in a one-on-one capacity compared to speaking to a group or presenting a song. I feel like I feel most power when I can tell that what I've just shared, maybe that is channeled and being that vessel of inspiration and just having that sense of what would be most impactful for this being in front of me to hear or receive or experience in this moment. And then shifting my behavior or my communication style to make the most positive influence I can on their being. I feel like that is a gift that I've received in being able to tap into that presence and that awareness of what's happening in another's field. And so I feel powerful when those moments land and then they share how maybe having a conversation with me or just a few sentences that I shared impacted their belief system and in turn shifted something in their life that was majorly impactful. I feel a lot of power in that. Do you resonate with that?
Definitely. Yeah. I've been experiencing that more frequently lately. And that's been an interesting, like, noticing and adjustment where I'm like consistently receiving more and more of that feedback from people in different groups and communities I interact with. And they're like reaching out and like thanking me for something I said or something I did that like shifted something for them. Where I'm just like being myself and showing up in the way that I do and just like loving and caring about people. And my gifts are at a certain level of refinement now where that more consistently creates a positive and significant impact on people. And it does, like, it feels like I feel powerful when I experience that for sure.
Is there a particular archetype of person or flavor of people that you find show up in your spaces?
Type or certain kind of person.
Mm-hmm. Or people who have, so people who are experiencing XYZ in life tend to find themselves in my field or any. So for example, I always say people are really drawn to my energy when they're on the precipice of some major transformation, because I carry a catalytic energy field, and so I know that about me, and so then I start to observe the people around me and say, oh, I wonder what life transition you're going through or what major decision you're going to make. And time and time again, that rings true. So I'm curious if there's people, oh, these type of people end up magnetizing themselves to me. Maybe not.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's probably a few different archetypes that kind of float in my field, but the one that's coming up right now is either like someone who is looking to more deeply understand and integrate their masculine and feminine within themselves. So I witness and experience myself as more of a balanced being at this point. I have more of like an androgynous soul, I would say, like androgynous essence versus like a masculine essence or like a feminine essence. At this point, I've really worked on both to integrate the two. So I think a lot of times that's what people receive from me is where they're a little bit weaker in one or the other. Usually, like I can help them to strengthen that and integrate that more and make it more like cohesive with the other energy that might be more the one they lead with.
Do you find more people on either end of the spectrum who are looking for that balance? Like people who are wanting to embody more masculine principles and they're already potentially leaning more spiritually, not spiritually, but maybe more softer or feminine embodiment, and they want to find that resonance, or on the other side where potentially they're way too in their analytical mind, their masculinity, whatever that means to you, and they're looking for more balance to find that flow.
Yeah, I would say like to kind of generalize, more of the men in my life
Yeah.
typically that are drawn to me have like a stronger masculine and they're looking to, in an authentic way, incorporate more feminine
Yeah.
because there's a lot of misconceptions about what feminine energy actually is that
Yes.
a lot of men come to the table with. They think it's like weak or like, oh, like
Mm-hmm.
I have to like go take a bubble bath for self care or something. Like, is that what feminine means? It's like, no, actually, that's not quite it. You know, that could be one piece of it.
Yeah.
And it's like so much more than that.
Would you describe what it might truly be in a more healthier, integrated, embodied way if someone approached you and said, is it about bubble baths?
So, what I would say is it's about presence and care.
Hmm.
And the reason I frame it that way as well is I'd say presence is actually almost more of a masculine trait. Like it's perhaps one of the masculine traits, like presence, true presence.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the more truly present I am, the more that I have the capacity to truly care about someone, to
Mm.
listen deeply, to be receptive. And that to me is what true integration of the feminine is. Is it, am I truly like listening to the person in front of me? Am I listening to my partner? Am I really hearing what she's saying? Am I really understanding, or am I just assuming and brushing it off or whatever it might be? Because actually, I don't have that as strong of a presence as I think I do. And can I really listen deeper, be more present, and really become more attuned and more like sensitive to what's happening within me and what's happening around me? To me, that's like a much truer version of feminine than just taking a bubble bath, you know. But if I'm sensitive to my body's needs and it's like craving a bubble bath, like fuck yeah, go for it. Like that could be an amazing way to embrace feminine energy, but that's more secondary to like being more sensitive, being more receptive, being a deeper listener to myself and to others.
I feel like in the Arizona community in particular, there was more of an openness and expression of being gender fluid or having various different identities and expressions, and the conversations were more prevalent than I found in other cities. And so there's a lot of nuance in all of these conversations, of course. But I'm curious when I think about it from, black and white, men, women. Women, let's say as a society or community, a lot of women are speaking a desire for men to be more emotionally responsive or tap into their feelings. But something else that I've heard is they want these men to tap into their feelings in communities like you're describing, so that the men then have the capacity to show up for the woman's feelings more so than they want to experience the man like having an emotional breakdown and tapping into those feelings in that way. So I feel like there's some even confusion in women what they think they want from their partner. And so I feel like the teachings and what is masculine presence, what is feminine flow, how do we integrate the two and find a healthy, balanced way to where it doesn't depolarize the attraction or the arrows between them, because it can. So it's just like these real subtle layers of energetics and experiencing that we move through. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing in that is there's like a desire from women for men to tap more into their emotions and their sensitivity, like let's say in like a men's group, to like learn how to do that better so that they can show up better in their relationship with them, and there's more space for her emotions to be there present. Is that correct? Does that sound like what you were sharing?
That's what I think. That's what I think. Rather than women deeply desiring to have the men just access these deep feelings and not know what to do with them. So some men are just so, they don't even access the fact that they're upset, that they're depressed, that they have anxiety. They stuff it down. They workaholic it. They go to
Yeah.
the gym, all of this. And so women are like, I want to know how you really feel. What are these deep emotions? Show me your pain. And then when the men show the pain, it's potentially frightening because we're not used to experiencing
Mm,
this, or it's
yeah.
unattractive. I'm not saying that's the case all the time, but I think then the men get the feedback, oh, when I show my response, this is how you act, and then they stuff it down more. And so I feel like
Yeah.
as a society, I have this hope that all of us are evolving and growing. And then also there's still a lot of confusion, even in the communication of tapping into your masculine, tapping into your feminine. And so I think creating conversations or structures and guidelines that actually show people this, or even workshopping with couples or with friends and seeing these different things in play. I mean, this is very intricate. I'm not expecting you to have a lot of thoughts on this. This is something I'm mulling over, and I am generalizing a bit here, and I don't necessarily desire for that to be the sentiment, but it seems common, something that I've heard of, oh, women say they want this, but is that what they
Mm,
actually want? Or do they want the men to have these spaces like you're describing where they get to interact with their emotional body, and then they still show up in a more present, maybe stoic way with their feminine partner to create that safety for her emotions? And is that fair?
mm.
Yeah.
I love this topic and I actually have a lot of thoughts on this.
Okay.
And one thing I want to share that might potentially be controversial to some people is, yeah, I see this dynamic you're describing as well, where it's like I see certain women like saying they want one thing, but then when they get that thing, they're like, oh, wait, I actually don't want this. I think that is something that's happening. In my experience, there's this thing that can happen, especially when men start to explore their emotions more and get more in tune with them. It's almost like we can lose our spine in that, where now we get absorbed by our emotions. We kind of get overwhelmed by them. And we, now all of a sudden, like my feminine partner, like she's actually having to hold my emotions because I'm actually not fully capable of holding them myself. I can tap into them more and I'm expressing them, but then I feel like I get punished for that because I don't realize that I'm actually putting some of those onto her because I haven't learned how to hold them well enough within myself that now like she's like, wait a second, like why is this happening now? You know, I don't actually want this. Which I think it, to be fair, can go both ways, where I've also experienced where, you know, I've had female partners that, you know, want to be able to be in their full emotional feminine expression, which is great, except when it felt like to the extreme where I was not consenting to want to hold all of her emotions for her. I felt like some of them were being projected and put on me in a way that I actually didn't desire and wasn't ready for. And then I felt like she actually was using that as an excuse to not be responsible for her own emotions as well. So I think it can go both ways, where like ideally in my mind, we both need to better cultivate our masculine and our feminine. The masculine being the containment of the emotions, the feminine being like the richness and the flow of them. Like we each have a responsibility within ourselves to a degree to hold those within ourselves. And if someone else wants to help support me through that, they can consent to that, but there shouldn't be an expectation that they have to on either side of the street. So that's like my honest views on that.
Very fantastic point, and I so agree on it being on both sides. And what this has looked like in practice for me, I used to be that person who had those big, big feelings, and I would just express them, experience them, and then put that, yeah, on my partner or think that it was in some way their fault for how I was feeling. And so it took a lot of deep processing and inner work to realize when I'm being activated in some way, where it's actually coming from, and if it's rooted in the dynamic that's playing out between me and the person in front of me, or if it is a response to a deeper layer or bigger trigger than that. And even that, it still has its challenges. So I feel like there's certain layers of strength, and I think that's what's in some ways making modern day romance or dating more challenging, even because people do have these higher degrees of awareness of what's possible, and then when we're not experiencing it can feel undesirable. So I have complex PTSD, and sometimes the person I'm dating does trigger big feelings in me, and my body will respond. And so mentally, I'm going through what's happening. And so I'm communicating, hey, this is what's happening. I know why it's happening. I'm feeling these feelings, and my body needs to move through it. And that's still a lot of energy for the other person to hold, even if I know and specifically say, I'm not projecting onto you, etc., etc. So these are things that I'm still learning and navigating myself in my relating, and I feel really proud of myself and the way that I have showed up in all my connections in recent years. And so just for anyone listening who hears these conversations, it's an ongoing journey.
Yeah. What do you feel has like been one of the biggest impacts or influences that has supported you in that process to be able to better navigate in that way?
I have a lot more resources and tools as far as understanding the nervous system. And so I feel like I am able to, through years of meditation and the different practices, I can feel when my heartbeat increases. I'm able to sense when my physiology is shifting. And so in that ability to notice, I start becoming aware of the response that my body's having. And so it's this sense of being the experiencer and the observer simultaneously. And so that comes in handy in these circumstances where I'm highly activated. And so I've looked at what experiences have caused the most activation in me, and then I embark on a journey of diffusing that charge, whether that's through therapy or trying out different modes of relating. So, for example, I used to be someone who experienced a lot of jealousy and possessiveness in my relationships. Okay, now I'm someone who practices polyamory at times. That's very different. When, for me, I realized it wasn't what was happening, it was the dishonesty and the lack of communication. So to me, okay, if I practice polyamory, maybe we've read these books, we've done the podcast, we've maybe had the experiences, we're coming at it from the lens of, I want to be open, I want to be honest with you, I understand there might be big feelings, and we're both going to separately take ownership for what these things bring up in us, under the caveat that we have the awareness of our partner and also are just so open and so honest. And for me, that really diffuses the charge. And I don't feel betrayed, and I don't feel this or that. And after years and years, it just doesn't activate me that way. And even still, the experiencing of them having desire for someone else or whatever the situation might be, that's not what activates me. What activates me is feeling disrespected or inconsiderate or lied to. And so even here, after I've now transcended some of those certain energies, there's still more to the story. And so I'm still navigating that. And I just understand this about my nervous system. So coming to breath work, presence, having friends to talk to. I've been in therapy for a really long time. There's a lot of different ways I come from. One of the most unstable environments that people might describe to someone. And so it has been a long journey. And despite everything I've done and all the healing I've done, my nervous system is still very, very sensitive, even more sensitive in some ways. And I do come at all my dynamics in life with a sense of integrity and just true, pure intentions for everyone I engage with. And so when I'm not met with that in reciprocatedly in reciprocation, it hurts even more. So that is another layer to it. But knowing how I approach life and all the things that I do, it does give me a deep sense of inner peace, knowing, okay, I moved with grace here. And so that also gives me a sense of peace, and having that connection to my spiritual practice also helps me navigate all of these different challenges and holding different perspectives of all of us learning and growing, or potentially having karmic dynamics, or understanding that shadow material gets illuminated in connection, and just all the different ways I've learned and studied on what growth looks like. It helps me find an anchoring within self so that these circumstances don't derail me in the way that they would have prior to embarking on a conscious path. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I love what you just shared. And the piece the thread I want to pull on a little more that I heard in that share was how powerful just simple honesty is. Like you're saying, I've explored more alternative relating models as well. And I find that the more honest I can be with myself and others, the more it just eases the tension, and the more that it really builds trust amongst each other. And it really just cuts through a lot of the negative experiences that I would otherwise have in relationship. And I'm even more and more getting to the point now where I want to bring up this term that we use in some of the Tantra spaces that I'm a part of, which is the word compersion. Have you heard of the word compersion? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, you're happy for someone else's happiness and experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of describe it as the opposite of jealousy. It's when I witness someone else in their joy, I experience more joy myself. And it's just, for me, kind of the epitome of deep love and care for someone, and deep honesty with someone, and feeling that like pure desire where like I literally just want what's best for this other human. Like I just want this person to experience their best life and have their best experience. And that may in certain ways be in connection with me, and in other ways they're going to be in connection with other people. But as long as there's honesty in the whole experience of it, more and more I'm finding this middle way where I can actually be, even if there's someone I'm connected with intimately, I can feel excited and happy for them in connecting with someone else if it feels like there's a true authentic desire there and there's not any deception or manipulation happening. It's like, fuck yeah, amazing. Like I love that for you. And it like adds to our relationship. And it's like, actually I receive more when I'm able to be in that space of fully like loving and supporting them in that way.
What if you're receiving less because they're now experiencing something in someone else? Is it still,
Ooh.
are you still able to find that compersion when you feel like what you had has now dissolved for them to experience elsewhere?
Okay, so here's my honest answer. If that's the case and someone else connecting with another human leads to me connecting with them less, there may be pain there because I'm losing something that I'm familiar with and something that I might have some attachment to, or just genuine feelings and desire for. And I'm in the context more and more that what's meant for me will always find me, and what's right for me will always continue to come into my life and into greater alignment. So if someone does truly start pulling away from me, typically the pain is actually coming just from the attachment to my expectations and my ideas of how I think it has to be or should be, less than the actual connection to this person. And if I can allow myself to ebb and flow in my relationships and not be attached to a particular form, that makes it a lot more easeful. But the one distinction I want to make that I think is often a misperception, or even probably a lot of people's experiences, that for me doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that I'm less committed to this person. It doesn't mean that I'm less connected to this person. I can still feel the same, if not more, love and support for this person, even if we're connecting a little bit less in ways we may be used to, because I can tell if it is a genuine unfolding that they are following the bigger flow of desire. And I trust in that more than I trust in my own small individual desires of what I think I want or what I think I need. And so,
Okay. Yeah, I like hearing your perspectives around this. And for me, because I do think multi-layered, and so I consider what my partner might be experiencing in life, and then I think about how my actions might impact them rather than what just feels good for me. I think it can be complicated in these dynamics where now I may project that my partners are going to show up in the same exact way for me, and that I'll be also deeply considered in how they're interacting and engaging. But a lot of times I think people are following their bliss or what feels good to them. And then with the understanding of, oh, we're poly or we're open, so this is going to be okay, regardless of what the life circumstances. And so, yeah, that's something that I've navigated recently. And then I ponder, did I respond to this appropriately? Or was this my sensitivities coming through? Was it truly a mismatch in compatibility or consideration? Or was I just in that deeply sensitive space and so everything hit a lot deeper? And if I had been fully resourced and not in so much transition, then hearing these things or receiving this sort of distance between us, it wouldn't have felt so heavy. So I feel like there's so much circumstance and nuance and being able to have those conversations with the people you're seeing. And sometimes if you're in certain dynamics where maybe you don't have that level of depth or commitment with each other, it's like the lines are blurred. And so being able to communicate just so effectively becomes really, really important in these spaces. And so it's good practice in relation. And then all of that translates into how we show up in all our other connections and all our other worlds. So I feel like it's really good life experience, even though it's a little bit more alternative of a lifestyle.
Yeah. 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 One thing I hear in that as well that I've learned is move slow is like one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever received when it comes to relating. And I love the piece you brought up about like being mutually considerate of each other. For me, I'm not about like usually like shorter term connections. Like for me, it usually takes time and trust and like easing into something for me to want to become more like intimate with someone in a particular way. And I usually move like very slow when it comes to that. Because I think I've come to a place in myself where I'm typically not just like pulled around by my own individual desires anymore. Like I have a lot of containment around that. Whereas I almost feel like how I describe it is like there's this third energy in the connection and like where's that leading us? So it's always a conversation about us. Like my desire doesn't live in a vacuum. My desire is in relation to this other person and in relation to even, let's say, the community that we're a part of, maybe where we met in. It's like, I think there's this false idea that we're all separate, right? I guess that's like one of the core spiritual truths is that we're actually not. Like, we're not separate. We're all one and we're different cells in one big, larger organism. And can we realize that and tune into like what would be best for the organism as a whole? And that's more and more how I relate as an individual to the collective or to any other individual is what is the highest relationship between me and this other person? What are the most resonant threads of connection? And where is spirit guiding us? Where is this third energy guiding us? And like, let's both tune into that and listen to that and speak and act from that place versus just what I want, or which is really what I think I want in this moment. But there's something much greater. There's like a wiser guiding force that I've learned to attune to more that typically gets me a lot better results, a lot more positive what I do want, and avoids a lot of unnecessary pain, at least of what I don't want. There can still be pain in the process, but it's things tend to work out a lot better when I'm really tuning into something greater than just my individual self, I've found.
Hmm.
Which is not to reject the individual desire, just to clarify. Like, I certainly have my own personal desires and attractions and all of that. And is that in alignment with this bigger energy? And is it really in congruence with that?
Hmm. And taking that extra step to consider. Yeah. Do you feel like that's considering potential impact? Is that, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. For me, I don't typically like make big decisions after like one experience.
Yeah.
If I'm noticing a pattern or a behavior, like I'll do my best to effort to address it and to put in the work to like work together to address something if it's happening in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And if over time it seems like we're not actually making meaningful progress in a certain way, that's when I'll start considering maybe there's a different choice available here because, you know, it's not working out well for either of us. And I don't want to just like leave though, because that was my previous avoidant pattern that I've gotten much healthier relationship with. Because doing that also has an impact. If I just peace out and be like, oh my God, they did this thing and I'm just gone. Not to say certain extreme things happen like physical abuse that you should definitely consider like not sticking around for that. But, you know, in a lot of cases when it's in that more gray area, like there's a lot more opportunity for us to learn from the experience and to hopefully grow together and grow beyond that thing. And that's just not always what happens.
Yeah. Words of wisdom. I love talking about relationships and these type of dynamics. So I know we diverged from our intended path here, but I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, me too.
If your life philosophy had a personal soundtrack, what genre would it be? Or is there a specific song? If you're gonna walk out on
Ooh.
stage, what song's gonna play?
Oh man, that's a great question. Wow. Hmm. Okay, it would be a fusion between Eminem's "I'm Not Afraid," Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream," and then one of Jesus's sermons. Just like, oh, and throw in a little bit of Weird Al in there as well. Just like
Wow.
fuse all of those together. That's like the soundtrack of my being.
Do you mix music at all? I feel like you could easily find someone to create that for you.
I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm like really pursuing my music more seriously starting this past year. I'm actually in the process of creating my first EP, which I'll be releasing in the spring. So yeah, I'm like starting to really find my voice, find my lane, find like what my niche is. And it's an explorative process because I'm very multifaceted. But yeah, I'm starting to find some cool threads that have a lot of energy and aliveness in them.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see if you make some music videos with it.
Oh, I'm definitely planning to.
It seems like you do some parody stuff lately. Is that new? I feel like I just started seeing this.
It's been getting more traction lately. I've been doing like content for my restaurants for a while, especially Freak Bros.
Yeah.
But we've been like, feel like the last 3 to 6 months, we've been really like locking in more and coming up with more, even of our own creative ideas or just our own unique takes on other stuff we've seen. And a lot more people are starting to like see our stuff and comment about it. Even just randomly when I'm going in my life. Like I just went to a family party yesterday and one of my cousins boyfriends who I like rarely ever see, he's like, "Oh my god, I love your content. I saw your skit the other day and it was awesome." So, yeah, it's definitely getting more reach now.
It's really fun. I think it brings out, it's almost like, remember, what was it, Vine used to be cool? And
Yeah.
so I feel like also with AI coming out, there's just so much generated content that when you see people playing and having fun, it is sparking a bit more joy. I made a music video, it was like kind of a rap music video with my roommates recently, and people keep telling me how
But
much they liked it too. And it reminds me of being in high school. I used to have all my friends make rap music videos with me and we would just play around. So that feels cool. Like that kind of thing is coming back and us adults or millennial folks are participating in it.
totally. Yeah, I love that energy of just like kids playing around with things. Like I'm just trying things out. We're just having fun with it, you know? It's like
Yeah,
life can be so serious and heavy and the world's in kind of a serious, chaotic place right now. It's like I think we could really use that medicine of just like playfulness and childlike joy and like just fun, you know?
absolutely. Agree. I'm going to bring more of that into my life too. If you could teleport anywhere after this conversation, where would you go?
Probably some other strange psychedelic dimension just to like dance around and get inspired and like, you know, maybe communicate with some like extra dimensional beings or something. Like that'd be pretty dope. Yeah.
That's actually possible. A lot more, that's a lot more possible than going to Brazil or something like that. So that's
That's
interesting.
true. Just go into a deep meditation. I could probably get there.
Do you have visuals when you're meditating?
Not usually. I'm more like claircognizant. So I'll like kind of just feel or know things. Like, you know, I might get little hits of things that I see, but it's usually very passing. It's more like I'm sensing things
Yeah,
or
I've
like
experienced
getting
that.
messages and then I'll just start speaking and then I can like speak things through me. Like that's like
Mhm.
another one of my like ways of like tapping in.
I have the same. Do you know what your human design is?
Yeah, I'm a manifester. I think it's a 2-5, a hermit heretic.
Okay, I'm a
I don't know.
manifester too.
I don't know too much about it, but yeah,
Yeah, I love human
manifester.
design, but what you described how you, so human or manifestors have throat connected to the heart or one of the other centers, and so that's what makes us a manifester. And so when speaking without thinking, that's when the truth and clarity comes through. And so it makes sense that you would resonate with being able to be in that flow state with your voice and then realizing potentially your truest thoughts and desires through that.
No wonder I love freestyle rap so much.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's the perfect way to synthesize what's coming through, and then you're using your throat motor to bring that through, and it has a lot of power. And do you find that the words you say and what you speak has a big impact on the people around you?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like one of my most powerful manifestation tools.
Yeah, that's manifestor energy. Gang, gang.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the investigator and martyr, and so it makes sense that I like to deeply study and then also want to trial and error. So this is one of those journeys where I got that hit of, okay, I'm going to do this, and then here I am. Now I'm interviewing people, making this pod thing. It landed in one day, and I knew it was coming because I had a full rest day. The day before, my guidance was like, no, just lay on your bed, don't do anything. And I knew, I was like, some inspiration's coming. And the next day I was like, oh, I'm going to make the video, I'm going to post and ask people if they want to start having conversations with me. And now here I am doing the thing. And that's the cool, like, fun part of manifestor journey. And when you do understand the cycles and when it hits, and knowing like, okay, my body's asking me to rest because it's trying to download inspiration. And so when we actually listen and let it land, boom, power moves. So yeah, cool stuff. Cool stuff. I always got to drop in a little bit of something, astrology or human design, in all of my conversations. And I know now we're essentially at the end of our time together. And so there were potentially some other threads you wanted to touch on. Is there anything that is on your heart that you feel like, oh, I really want to talk about this today?
Yeah, I think just the last thing I'll share that I think will help even further tie this all together is I've found that the more I'm willing to lean into my edges of discomfort, those places that a part of me doesn't want to go, the more gold that I find, and the more that I'm able to take those experiences and those lessons and apply them to everything else that I'm doing. So to kind of go back towards the beginning, me exploring the world of Tantra and sacred sexuality and shamanism and all of that has really leveled me up in all areas of my life, because I now can build healthier, better, richer, deeper human connection with anyone in my life, no matter what the context is. It's just like a very universally applicable skill set. Beyond that, I'm also much less afraid to do scary things and to feel discomfort in my body and to be confronted by things. I used to be very conflict avoidant, for example, in a lot of my relationships, very people pleasing, fawning, which I still have some shadows of, lingering of those patterns. But by and large, they don't control me anymore. And I'm able to like say the honest thing in a moment, in a conversation, in a relationship, even if it could potentially mean the end of that thing. Because I've realized that speaking my truth is more important than keeping the peace, because it's actually a fake peace. It's not real peace. Real peace is when the truth has been fully shared, and then we can both rest in that space together, rather than withholding. That's actually just being avoidant and pushing away something that we're perceiving as uncomfortable or potentially bad or negative, versus actually going through the thing and coming out on the other side of it, which is where real peace lies. So I guess my takeaway message and encouragement for anyone who's listening is really identify those edges for you and lean into them, not in a irresponsible way, but in a way that feels in integrity for you, and to just like keep taking one step forward at a time, calling in additional support if there's something that feels a little too big for you to deal with, because support is here and available a lot of times if we just ask for it. But
Hmm.
if we never ask, we'll never know. But there's just so much support available. And, there's people who want to support us in our lives or have the next tool or perspective we need to more effectively navigate whatever the challenges that we're facing in our life.
Very beautifully spoken. It was really cool to hear your conversation flow, actually, and just hear
Mhm.
your perspectives and your ideas. So I appreciate the conversation that we had today. And I feel like there's a lot of nuggets of wisdom here and some food for pondering. So I feel like people might have questions about some of the stuff we said. So I'm going
Yeah.
to suggest putting them in the comment section. And then would you be open to me reaching back out to you if there are questions specifically directed at you to see what your responses would be?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Feel to reach out to me. I'm happy to share or yeah. And also if anyone wants to reach out directly, I'm also happy to chat and have a conversation too.
Okay, yeah, good point. All right, that was awesome. Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay. This was fun. I enjoyed it.